The bright lights of Wilson's department store gleamed off the polished floor as Marcus Johnson stepped through the automatic doors. The 17-year-old adjusted his school basketball team hoodie and glanced at his phone to check the time. He had exactly 45 minutes before he needed to head home for dinner, just enough time to find the perfect birthday gift for his mother. Marcus had been saving for weeks from his part-time job at the local library. $325 sat securely in his wallet, money he had carefully put aside specifically for this occasion. His mother deserved something special, and Marcus was determined to find it. Wilson's was the finest department store in the city of Westfield. Its 3 floors housed everything from designer clothes to fine jewelry. Marcus headed straight for the escalator, making his way to the 2nd floor where the jewelry section sparkled under carefully positioned spotlights. Unknown to Marcus, his presence had already caught someone's attention. Karen Winters, the store manager, stood behind the customer service desk with her arms crossed. Her eyes narrowed as she watched the young black teen in the hoodie step onto the escalator. She quickly picked up the store phone. "Security, please keep an eye on the young man in the blue hoodie heading to the 2nd floor," she said in a low voice. "He looks suspicious." Marcus reached the jewelry counter and began to browse the glass cases. His mother had mentioned liking silver pieces, and he hoped to find something that wouldn't use up all his savings but would still make her eyes light up when she opened it. "Can I help you?" asked the jewelry clerk, an older woman named Janet who had worked at Wilson's for over a decade. "I'm looking for a birthday gift for my mom," Marcus replied with a smile. "Something in silver, maybe with her birthstone, which is emerald." Janet nodded and began showing him several options. Marcus focused intently on each piece, asking thoughtful questions about craftsmanship and quality. He was taking his time, wanting to make the right choice. From the security room, Karen Winters watched the scene unfold on the monitors. Despite seeing nothing out of the ordinary, her suspicion only grew. The teen had been at the jewelry counter for 15 minutes now, looking at multiple pieces but buying nothing. "He's casing the place," she muttered to herself, trying to figure out which pieces to grab. On the sales floor, Marcus had finally narrowed his choices down to 2 necklaces. One was a simple silver chain with a small emerald pendant. The other was a more intricate design with emerald accents. Both were beautiful, both within his budget. "Can I see that one again?" he asked, pointing to the simpler design. "I think my mom would like that one best. She prefers elegant things that aren't too flashy." Janet smiled and placed the necklace on a velvet display pad. "Your mother raised a thoughtful son. This is a lovely choice." Marcus was just reaching for his wallet when he noticed a security guard positioning himself at the end of the counter. Another appeared near the escalator. A strange feeling settled in his stomach as he realized they were watching him. Before Marcus could complete his purchase, Karen Winters appeared beside him, her face set in a stern expression. The pleasant afternoon was about to take an unexpected turn that would shake the entire community of Westfield. And no one, especially not Karen Winters, could predict what was coming next. Karen Winters moved closer to Marcus, her heels clicking loudly against the tile floor. The sound made several customers turn and look. "Excuse me, young man," she said, her voice sharp and unnecessarily loud. "What exactly are you doing here?" Marcus blinked in surprise. "I'm buying a necklace for my mom's birthday," he answered, confusion clear in his voice. Janet, the jewelry clerk, nodded in agreement. "He's been looking at these 2 pieces." "I wasn't asking you," Karen cut her off, not taking her eyes off Marcus. "We've been watching you on our security cameras. You've been hanging around this counter for quite some time." Marcus's shoulders tensed, but he kept his voice calm. "I was trying to make sure I picked the right gift. It's an important birthday for my mom." By now, several shoppers had stopped to watch the scene. The 2 security guards moved closer, standing just behind Karen. "Could I see inside your pockets, please?" Karen demanded, crossing her arms. Marcus felt his heart beating faster, but his father had always taught him to stay composed in difficult situations. "I haven't taken anything. I was just about to pay for this necklace." He reached slowly for his wallet. "Stop." Karen's voice echoed through the store. "Keep your hands where I can see them. Security, please check his pockets." The taller security guard stepped forward, looking uncomfortable. "Ma'am, I didn't actually see him take anything." "Just check," Karen insisted. The embarrassment burned in Marcus's chest as customers whispered and pointed. Some had their phones out, recording the scene. Janet stood behind the counter, looking helpless and upset. "I have money right here," Marcus said, carefully taking out his wallet to show the cash inside. "I saved up $325 for my mom's gift. I work at the city library after school." Karen scoffed. "And where would someone like you get that kind of money?" The words hung in the air. Several gasps came from the growing crowd of onlookers. Janet spoke up again. "Mrs. Winters, this young man has been nothing but polite. He's been asking thoughtful questions about the jewelry for his mother." "You don't understand how these things work," Karen replied, not looking at Janet. She turned to the security guards. "Call the police. Tell them we have a shoplifting suspect." Marcus felt as though the floor had dropped from beneath him. "Please, this is a mistake. I haven't taken anything. I was just shopping." "The police can sort that out," Karen said firmly. "In the meantime, you'll need to come with us to the security office." Marcus looked around at the staring faces. Some looked concerned, others judgmental. He thought about resisting, about arguing his case more strongly, but years of his parents' careful teaching echoed in his mind. "Stay calm, be respectful, don't escalate." "Can I at least call my father?" Marcus asked quietly. Karen laughed. "Of course. You can call whoever you want once the police arrive." As the security guards led Marcus away from the jewelry counter, he noticed Janet slip the silver and emerald necklace back into the display case with a sad expression. Everything had changed so quickly. Just minutes ago, he'd been happily shopping for his mother's gift. Now he was being treated like a criminal. Little did Karen Winters know that Marcus's phone call would change everything, and that her hasty judgment would soon bring consequences she never anticipated. The security office of Wilson's department store was a small room with stark white walls and bright fluorescent lighting. A desk with 3 monitors displaying security camera feeds sat against one wall. 2 uncomfortable plastic chairs faced the desk. Marcus was directed to sit in one of them. Karen Winters stood by the door, arms crossed, while the 2 security guards looked increasingly uneasy. The taller guard, whose name tag read Thomas, kept glancing at Marcus with something that looked like apology in his eyes. "The police will be here in about 10 minutes, Karen announced, checking her watch. "Until then, empty your pockets onto the desk." Marcus slowly removed his phone, wallet, keys, and a small folded photo from his pockets. He placed them carefully on the desk. "What's that?" Karen asked sharply, pointing to the photo. Marcus unfolded it to reveal a picture of his mother smiling in front of their house on her last birthday. "It's my mom. Today's her birthday." Thomas picked up the wallet and looked inside. "Ma'am, he does have over $300 in cash here, just like he said." Karen waved this information away. "That doesn't prove anything. He could have gotten that money anywhere." The implied accusation hung in the air. Marcus felt his face grow hot, but he kept his expression neutral. His father had experienced situations like this throughout his life and had prepared Marcus for the possibility that it would happen to him too. "Keep breathing steady," his dad had told him. "Remember who you are." The door to the security office opened, and 2 police officers entered. One was a tall woman with short blonde hair. The other was a middle-aged man with a serious expression. Their presence made the small room feel even more crowded. "I'm Officer Reynolds, and this is Officer Chen," the woman said. "We received a call about a shoplifting incident." "Yes," Karen said quickly. "This young man was behaving suspiciously around our jewelry counter. He kept looking at expensive pieces without making a purchase." Officer Chen raised an eyebrow. "Did anyone actually see him take anything?" There was an awkward pause. "Well, no," Karen admitted. "But he fits the profile of shoplifters we've had in the past. And he's carrying an unusual amount of cash." Officer Reynolds turned to Marcus. "What's your name, son?" "Marcus Johnson, ma'am." "And how old are you?" 17. I'll be 18 next month." Officer Chen picked up Marcus's wallet and examined his student ID. "Says here you go to Westfield High. You're on the honor roll." Marcus nodded. "Yes, sir." "And the money?" "I've been saving it for my job at the city library. For my mom's birthday present, I was trying to buy her a silver necklace with an emerald pendant when Mrs. Winters accused me of stealing." The female officer turned to Karen. Ma'am, do you have evidence that anything was actually taken? Karen's confidence seemed to waver slightly. Well, not exactly, but we can check the security footage, Thomas offered, gesturing toward the monitors. For the next few minutes, they reviewed the footage of Marcus at the jewelry counter. It clearly showed him looking at various pieces, talking with Janet, and reaching for his wallet just before Karen intervened. I don't see any evidence of shoplifting here, Officer Reynolds said finally. He could have hidden something before we approached him, Karen insisted, though her voice lacked conviction now. Marcus felt a mixture of relief and lingering humiliation. The officers weren't buying Karen's story, but he was still being treated like a criminal, detained in a back room, while other shoppers went about their day. May I call my father now? Marcus asked quietly. Officer Chen nodded. Go ahead. Marcus picked up his phone and dialed. When the call connected, he spoke calmly despite the emotion building in his chest. Dad? It's Marcus. I'm being detained at Wilson's department store. They think I'm shoplifting. I was just trying to buy Mom's gift. The response on the other end of the line was brief but clear. Marcus looked up at the group watching him. My father will be here in 15 minutes, he said. The small security office fell silent after Marcus hung up the phone. Officer Reynolds was reviewing Marcus's ID and school information, while Officer Chen stood near the door, observing the situation with growing concern. So, your father is coming. What does he do? Karen asked with a dismissive tone, clearly trying to maintain control of the situation. He works for the city, Marcus replied simply, offering nothing more. Years of his father's guidance echoed in his mind. Never use my position to get special treatment. Let your character speak for itself. Karen smirked. Well, we'll have this sorted out before he arrives. I'm sure he's very busy with his city job. Thomas, the taller security guard, shifted uncomfortably. He leaned toward his colleague and whispered something. The other guard's eyes widened slightly, but he said nothing. Officer Reynolds was scrolling through something on her phone. Suddenly, she straightened up and gave Officer Chen a meaningful look. Mr. Johnson, Officer Reynolds addressed Marcus directly, her tone noticeably more respectful. While we wait for your father, could you tell us exactly what happened today? Marcus took a deep breath and spoke in a clear, measured voice. I came to buy a birthday gift for my mom. I've been saving for weeks for my library job. I was at the jewelry counter for about 20 minutes, trying to decide between two necklaces. I was about to pay when Mrs. Winters in security approached me. And at no point did you attempt to conceal any merchandise? Officer Chen asked. No, sir. The clerk, Janet, was helping me the whole time. Officer Reynolds turned to Karen. Mrs. Winters, we should speak with this clerk as well. The mood in the room had subtly shifted. Karen seemed to sense it, her confidence visibly faltering. I was just following store protocol for suspicious behavior, she insisted. He was looking at expensive jewelry for an unusually long time. I wanted to make the right choice for my mom, Marcus said quietly. It's not something I could afford to get wrong. Thomas cleared his throat. Ma'am, I should mention that Janet has been trying to speak with you. She's quite upset about the situation. Karen waved this away. She doesn't understand our loss prevention protocols. Actually, Officer Chen said, store protocols still need to be balanced with reasonable suspicion. Browsing merchandise, even for extended periods, isn't grounds for detention. The atmosphere grew increasingly tense as the minutes ticked by. Marcus sat calmly, though inside he felt a storm of emotions, embarrassment, anger, and a deep sadness that his special day for his mother had been ruined. Officer Reynolds' radio crackled. She stepped outside briefly to respond, then returned with a changed expression. There's someone at the front entrance asking for you, she told Karen. He says he's here about Marcus Johnson. Karen straightened her blazer. Well, let's go meet this concerned father, shall we? There was still a hint of condescension in her voice, as if she expected to encounter someone she could easily dismiss. As they left the security office, Marcus walked with his head held high despite the stares from store employees they passed. He knew what was coming. They reached the store's main entrance where a crowd had gathered. Employees, customers, and even a few people from neighboring shops had formed a semicircle around a tall, distinguished black man in an impeccable navy suit. A government pin adorned his lapel, and two assistants stood nearby, one holding a folder of what appeared to be interrupted meeting notes. The whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. "That's Mayor Johnson. What's the mayor doing here? Did someone call the mayor over a shoplifting case?" Karen Winters stopped dead in her tracks, the color draining from her face as realization dawned. Marcus stepped forward. "Hi, Dad," he said simply. The mayor's expression remained composed, but his eyes revealed both concern for his son and a controlled anger that made Karen take an involuntary step backward. "Marcus," Mayor Robert Johnson said, his deep voice carrying throughout the now silent store entrance. "Are you all right, son?" The entire store seemed to hold its breath as Mayor Robert Johnson stood in the entrance, his commanding presence filling the space. At 6'2", with salt and pepper hair and shoulders squared from years of public service, he was instantly recognizable to everyone in Westfield. "I'm okay, Dad," Marcus answered, maintaining the composure his father had always taught him to display, especially in public. But the slight tremor in his voice betrayed the emotional toll of the past hour. Mayor Johnson nodded once, then scanned the faces surrounding his son. His gaze settled on Karen Winters, who was now fidgeting with the lanyard around her neck. "I understand there's been some kind of misunderstanding involving my son," he said, his voice measured but firm. "Would someone care to explain?" Karen stepped forward, visibly struggling to regain her professional demeanor. "Mayor Johnson, I didn't realize, that is, we had no idea that Marcus was my son," the mayor finished for her. "Yes, though I'm curious why that would matter in how he's treated while shopping for his mother's birthday gift." By now, more customers had gathered, many with phones discreetly recording the scene. One of the mayor's assistants noticed this and whispered something in his ear, but Mayor Johnson shook his head slightly, seeming unconcerned about the audience. Officer Reynolds approached the mayor. "Sir, I'm Officer Reynolds. We were called to respond to a possible shoplifting incident, but upon reviewing the security footage and speaking with your son, we found no evidence of any wrongdoing." "Then why is my son still being detained?" the mayor asked. "We were just wrapping things up when you arrived," Officer Chen added quickly. Janet, the jewelry clerk, pushed her way through the crowd. "Mayor Johnson, I was helping your son select a necklace for his mother when all this happened. He was nothing but polite and respectful," I tried to tell them. "Thank you," the mayor said, giving her a grateful nod. "I appreciate you speaking up." He turned back to Karen, whose face had grown increasingly pale. "Mrs. Winters," she supplied weakly. "Karen Winters, I'm the store manager." "Mrs. Winters, I'd like to see the security footage that prompted you to call the police on my 17-year-old son." It wasn't a request. Karen looked to Thomas, who nodded nervously. "We can show you in the security office, sir," Thomas said. "Good," the mayor replied. "And I'd like Mrs. Winters' direct supervisor on the phone while we review it." One of the mayor's assistants was already making calls on her cell phone. "Mr. Phillips from Regional Management is on his way, sir. He was at the downtown office and can be here in 10 minutes. The small crowd parted as Mayor Johnson placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder, guiding him away from the curious onlookers. Karen Winters followed, looking as though she might be ill. As they walked, Marcus spoke quietly to his father. "Dad, you didn't have to leave your meeting. I could have handled this." The mayor's expression softened slightly. "I know you could have, son. You handled yourself exceptionally well. But no one should have to handle being wrongfully accused while shopping for their mother's birthday gift." They reached the security office, which suddenly seemed much smaller with the addition of the mayor's imposing presence. Karen gestured weakly toward the monitors. "Thomas, please show the mayor the footage," she said. As the security footage played, showing Marcus carefully examining jewelry and interacting respectfully with Janet, Mayor Johnson watched without comment. When it ended, he turned to Karen Winters, who was now standing against the wall, arms crossed tightly over her chest as if trying to make herself smaller. "Mrs. Winters," Mayor Johnson said, his voice dangerously quiet, "I'd like to hear exactly what you saw my son do that warranted calling the police. And please be specific." Karen opened her mouth to speak, but found herself at a loss for words as the full weight of her actions, and their consequences, began to sink in. Karen Winters stared at the security footage, then at Mayor Johnson, then back at the footage again. The evidence was undeniable. Marcus had done absolutely nothing wrong. Well, Mrs. Winters? The mayor prompted. I'm waiting to hear what my son did that was so suspicious it required police intervention. Karen cleared her throat. He was looking at expensive jewelry for a long time. Even to her own ears, the explanation sounded hollow. And that's a crime? Mayor Johnson asked, his voice calm but firm. No, but... Was he hiding merchandise? Attempting to distract staff? Behaving aggressively? No, sir. Then what, exactly, made you suspect my son of criminal intent? The room fell silent. Everyone knew the unspoken answer, but no one wanted to say it aloud. A knock at the door broke the tension. A well-dressed man in his 50s entered, slightly out of breath. Mayor Johnson, I'm Richard Phillips, Regional Director for Wilson's Department Stores. I came as soon as I heard. The mayor nodded once in acknowledgement. Mr. Phillips, I'm concerned about what appears to be a pattern of behavior at your store. My son was shopping for his mother's birthday when he was wrongfully accused of shoplifting with no evidence. Phillips looked at the security monitors, then at Karen, whose eyes were now fixed on the floor. We just reviewed the footage, the mayor continued. Perhaps Mrs. Winters can explain to you what she saw that I'm missing. All eyes turned to Karen, who shifted her weight uncomfortably. I made an assumption, she finally admitted. When I saw a young man in a hoodie spending time at the jewelry counter, I jumped to conclusions. Because of how he looked, Mayor Johnson said, completing her thought. Karen didn't answer, which was answer enough. Officer Reynolds spoke up. Sir, from our perspective, there's no evidence of any crime. We won't be pursuing any charges, obviously. Thank you, officer, the mayor replied. Mr. Phillips stepped forward. Mayor Johnson, on behalf of Wilson's Department Store, I want to express our deepest apologies to you and your son. This incident does not reflect our company values, and I assure you there will be consequences. The mayor looked at his son. Marcus, what do you think should happen here? Marcus straightened in his chair, surprised at being asked. He took a moment to consider, then spoke with a maturity beyond his 17 years. I think what happened today happens to a lot of people who don't have the mayor as their dad, he said. And most of them don't get apologies or explanations. That needs to change. Mayor Johnson nodded, pride evident in his expression. Well said. He turned back to Phillips. Mr. Phillips, I don't want Mrs. Winters fired. Karen's head snapped up in surprise. Firing one employee won't solve the underlying problem, the mayor continued. Instead, I want Wilson's to implement comprehensive bias training for all staff. I want clear guidelines about what constitutes suspicious behavior that warrants security intervention. And I want regular audits to ensure those guidelines are being followed equally for all customers. Phillips nodded eagerly. Yes, sir, we can certainly do that. Good, Mayor Johnson said. My office will be following up to ensure these changes are implemented. Now, if we're done here, my son was in the middle of shopping for his mother's birthday present. As they prepared to leave, Mayor Johnson paused beside Karen Winters, who still couldn't meet his eyes. Mrs. Winters, he said quietly, the hardest part of leadership is acknowledging when we've made a mistake. What matters most is what we learn from it, and how we change because of it. Karen finally looked up, her eyes glistening with unshed tears of shame and understanding. Yes, sir, she whispered. I'm truly sorry. The mayor nodded once, then placed his hand on Marcus's shoulder as they walked out of the security office together, leaving Karen to confront the painful reality of her actions and the journey of change that lay ahead. The story spread through Westfield like wildfire. By evening, cell phone videos of Mayor Johnson confronting store management had been viewed thousands of times on social media. Local news vans parked outside Wilson's department store the next morning, their reporters eager for comments from anyone involved. Marcus sat at the kitchen table, watching his father calmly sip coffee while scrolling through messages on his phone. Despite the chaos swirling around them, their home remained a peaceful sanctuary. You've got about 50 interview requests, Marcus said, checking his own phone. Everyone from the local stations to national news networks. Mayor Johnson set down his cup. And what about you? How are you holding up? Marcus shrugged. I'm okay. It's weird seeing myself in all these videos online, though. His mother, Diane Johnson, joined them at the table. She wore the silver and emerald necklace that Marcus had finally been able to purchase. Mayor Johnson had insisted they complete the original shopping mission after the confrontation, with a very apologetic Janet helping them. "You handled yourself with remarkable dignity, sweetheart," Diane said, reaching across to squeeze her son's hand. "Your father and I are so proud of you." The doorbell rang, and their family assistant peeked into the kitchen. "Sir, Mrs. Winters is here. She's requesting a few minutes of your time." Mayor Johnson raised his eyebrows in surprise. He looked at Marcus. "This is your call, son. Do you want to see her?" Marcus thought for a moment, then nodded. "Yeah, I think we should." Karen Winters looked vastly different from the confident store manager of the previous day. Her shoulders were hunched, and she clutched her purse tightly as she was shown into the living room. When she saw both the mayor and Marcus waiting for her, she nearly turned to leave. "Please, sit down, Mrs. Winters," Mayor Johnson said, gesturing to an armchair. Karen perched nervously on the edge of the seat. I wanted to apologize in person, to both of you, but especially to Marcus." She turned to look directly at the teenager. "What I did was wrong. There's no excuse for it." "Thank you for saying that," Marcus replied quietly. Karen continued, her voice shaking slightly. "The regional office has placed me on administrative leave. They're right to do so." "And how do you feel about that?" Mayor Johnson asked. "I deserve it," she said simply. "But I also want to do better. I've been thinking all night about what you said, about learning from mistakes." Mayor Johnson nodded encouragingly. "I realize now that I've been carrying biases I didn't even recognize," Karen continued. "I want to change that, not just to keep my job, but because it's the right thing to do." Mayor Johnson leaned forward slightly. "Mrs. Winters, I'm planning to announce a new citywide initiative next week, a task force to address racial profiling in retail settings and other public spaces. We need input from people on all sides of the issue, including store management." Karen looked up, surprised. "Are you offering me a position?" "I'm suggesting that your perspective and willingness to learn could be valuable. It won't be a paid role, and it would require a real commitment to the work." For the first time, Karen's expression showed a glimmer of hope. "I would be honored to help, if you think I could contribute something positive." As Karen left the Johnson home 30 minutes later, local reporters rushed toward her with microphones and cameras. She paused, considering whether to speak to them. Inside, Marcus watched through the window as Karen straightened her shoulders and faced the cameras. She didn't make excuses or try to defend her actions. Instead, she spoke honestly about her mistake and her commitment to change. "She's taking the first step," Mayor Johnson said, standing beside his son. "Do you think people can really change their deep-down beliefs?" Marcus asked. His father placed a hand on his shoulder. "With honesty, humility, and hard work? Yes, I do. It's never easy, but it's always possible." 6 months had passed since the incident at Wilson's department store. On a bright Saturday morning, Marcus Johnson stood at a podium in the store's main entrance, addressing a crowd of community members, business owners, and reporters. "Today marks the official launch of Westfield's Retail Equity Initiative," he said confidently. "Over the past 6 months, our Youth Council has worked with 28 local businesses to develop new training programs and customer service protocols." At 18, Marcus had grown even more poised. The experience that could have left him bitter had instead inspired him to drive meaningful change. The crowd applauded as he gestured to the diverse group of teenagers standing behind him, the youth council he now led. Mayor Johnson watched from the side, allowing his son to take center stage. Next to him stood Karen Winters, whose role had changed dramatically since that fateful day. No longer a store manager, she now worked full-time on bias training programs for retail environments. "None of this would have been possible without honest conversations about what happened here 6 months ago," Marcus continued. "Mrs. Karen Winters has been instrumental in helping businesses understand how unconscious bias affects customer interactions." Karen smiled nervously as several heads turned toward her. The journey hadn't been easy. She had faced criticism, lost friends, and spent countless hours in uncomfortable conversations about privilege and prejudice. But she had persisted, driven by a genuine desire to make amends. After the presentation, Marcus walked through the store with his parents. Wilson's had undergone visible changes. Diverse mannequins displayed throughout, signage in multiple languages, and a new customer bill of rights prominently posted at every entrance. Your initiative is making real change, his mother said proudly, touching the emerald necklace she still wore regularly. And I hear you've been accepted to Georgetown's pre-law program. Marcus nodded. I want to focus on civil rights law. This experience showed me how important it is to understand the legal system from the inside. They passed the jewelry counter where Janet still worked. She waved enthusiastically at Marcus, who had become something of a local celebrity. Have you seen today's paper? Mayor Johnson asked, handing his son the local newspaper. The headline read, Westfield's Retail Equity Program becomes model for other cities. Below was a photo of Marcus speaking to a group of business owners. 5 other cities have reached out to adopt our program, his father explained. What happened to you is changing policies across the state. As they neared the exit, they spotted Thomas, the security guard who had been present during the incident. He had since been promoted to head of security and had helped implement new guidelines for handling suspected shoplifting cases. Marcus, Mayor Johnson, Thomas called out, approaching them with a smile. I wanted to let you know that since implementing the new protocols, our false accusations are down 90%, but we haven't seen any increase in actual theft. Turns out, treating customers with respect works better than suspicion. Outside the store, a small group of teenagers recognized Marcus and approached for a photo. One of them, a young black girl no more than 15, spoke up shyly. I was shopping here last week, and nobody followed me around or made me feel unwelcome, she said. My mom says that's because of what you did. Marcus smiled. It's because of what we all did. Change happens when people work together. As they walked to their car, Mayor Johnson placed an arm around his son's shoulders. You know, when this all started, I was angry enough to shut that store down. I'm glad we found a better way. Marcus looked back at Wilson's department store, where the new diverse security team greeted customers with smiles instead of suspicion. Me too, Dad, he replied. Sometimes the best response to injustice isn't punishment, it's transformation. What had begun as a humiliating experience for one teenager had evolved into a movement that was changing their community one store at a time. And Marcus Johnson, once wrongfully accused, had discovered his life's purpose in ensuring that others would be treated with the dignity and respect that everyone deserves.